Luckily, I think everyone has grabbed a drink at the bar and has made their way to their seats. Thank you all for being here, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Color Collective's annual alumna reception. My name is Janet Lee, and alongside, yay! And alongside Mumtaz and Sruthi, I serve as one of the executive co-chairs of NYU Law's Women of Color Collective, also affectionately known on campus as WALK. WALK carves out space for women, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people of color here at NYU Law. This means that WALK's community is simultaneously comfortingly close, but also inspiringly broad. WALK plays a special role on this campus in that our community encompasses students from not only every single one of the 9 different affinity groups across the law school, but also students of color who may not identify as clearly with a particular ALSA here. WALK is uniquely able to bring people of these intersecting identities together and has personally served as one of my little homes on this campus. 2023 marks WALK's 16th year as an organization at the law school, and this community has only continued to grow over the years, thoughtfully built on the shoulders of the generations of students who came before us. Allow me just a moment to highlight and brag just a little bit about a few of the extraordinary efforts of our leadership board this year, because they do far too much for our organization. Our private professional development and public interest chairs have hosted countless panels and networking events to help foster career opportunities for students who continue to be underrepresented in our profession. Our social team has worked creatively to bring fun, joy, and wellness to our members, like with their newly launched initiative, WALK Works Out. Our 2L leadership team has pulled together lunches, picnics, and close-knit gatherings to help keep our frighteningly busy 2L class together. And our community service team has not only hosted an impactful food and coat drive with BronxWorks in the fall, but is in their final days of planning our biggest charity event of the year, Mixed Walk, which I very much encourage all of our students here to attend. This year's theme for our reception is Building Bridges, Fostering Well-Being. WALK's programming has always centered the importance of cultivating the well-being of our community, mentally, physically, socially, and emotionally. In a world and profession that can be turbulent and brisk, WALK stands to emphasize the importance of taking care of each other and this resilient community of ours. Every year, we honor an alumna who embodies our theme through their work, and this year we are thrilled to honor Crystal Crawford, class of '91. But before we hear from Crystal, I'm excited to invite another strong supporter of WALK to speak, our very own Dean Troy McKenzie. Dean McKenzie has always made time and space at this school for our underrepresented students, and I've personally had the privilege of having Dean McKenzie serve as my mentor during his time as the faculty advisor to the Ambrice Scholarship Program. We are thankful for your never-ending enthusiasm, sage advice, and your absolutely unmatched arsenal of bow ties, although you chose not to wear one today. Without further ado, I am pleased to introduce Dean Troy McKenzie.
The one night I decide not to wear the bow tie. Thank you so much, Janet. And as Janet mentioned, I started on the faculty in 2007, which is around the time that WALK was organized. So it was a new organization when I began teaching here at the law school, and I thought, and I still think, it's a fantastic organization that provides, exactly as Janet said, a wonderful supportive space for the perspectives of women, gender nonconforming and non-binary students of color here at the law school. So it's my pleasure to welcome everyone here for this year's Women of Color Collective alumni reception. And this is an event that shows what an exceptional place NYU is and how exceptional our student and alumni community is. I'm thrilled to welcome as well, for the first time, everyone in my official capacity as dean, although I've been around here a long time. I first walked on campus in the fall of 1997, and I basically haven't really left ever since. And it's a thrill to be here and to see the wonderful ways in which NYU has grown ever since. Each year, we have the opportunity to honor an alumna who has made a lasting and significant contribution to the legal profession. We have many illustrious former honorees for this honor, including Lisa Kung, class of '97, director of the Southern Center for Human Rights, the Honorable Marissa DeMeo, associate judge of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, Linda Gadsby, class of 1992, vice president and deputy general counsel at Scholastica, Alexis Hogue, class of '08, senior counsel at NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, the Honorable Jenny Rivera, now on the New York Court of Appeals. And this evening, we are here to celebrate the many accomplishments of this year's honoree, Crystal Crawford, class of 1991, executive director of Western Center on Law and Poverty. Sruthi will formally introduce and present the 2023 award to Crystal in just a moment, but I wanted to thank her for coming and being honored this evening. I want to take this opportunity to express how proud we are of your inspiring career in public service and how thrilled we are that you could be with us to honor you. Congratulations. Just a final word about the importance of WALK. As I said, this is an organization that didn't exist when I was a student, but started when I came back to campus as a law professor. And for many of the reasons that Janet laid out, it's important at a place that's as big as NYU and has as much diversity as NYU for there to be organizations and groups who can look out for each other. Law school can be tough. Law school can sometimes be a little alienating, but I've always thought that one of the reasons why NYU, despite the difficulties of the realities of law school, why NYU can feel like a family is because of organizations like WALK. So I'm really heartened by the collaboration and the community that is evident here tonight. So let me end by once again thanking you, Crystal, for joining us, thanking everyone here who was part of organizing this event. And now let me turn things over to Sruthi Rao, who will present this year's award.
Thank you, Dean Mackenzie, for your wonderful words. We will overlook the lack of bow tie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sruthi Rao, and along with Janet and Mumtaz, I serve as one of the executive co-chairs of the Women of Color Collective this year. Upon deciding on the theme of this year's reception, my co-chairs and I reflected on how the past few years have presented all forms of challenge for so many members of our community, whether brought on by the continuing effects of the pandemic or the general uncertainty that seems so present in our world. Such disquiet can seriously impact physical, mental, and emotional health, affecting well-being as a whole. When we took up the executive co-chairship of WALK, we committed to fulfilling one of the central missions of the organization, to foster the well-being of our members and the WALK community. Today, we work to provide space for women, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people of color to confide in, seek support from, and be empowered by. Well-being is foundational to resilience, confidence, and happiness, all qualities we seek to build in our members through their time at NYU, and further building the foundation to pursue justice and beyond. Thus, building bridges, fostering well-being seemed like an extraordinarily apt theme for this year's reception. We are phenomenally fortunate to share in Crystal Crawford's presence this year, the true embodiment of what it means to enrich well-being in our communities. Crystal is the executive director of the Western Center on Law and Poverty, and prior to this role has spent almost 20 years focusing on strengthening the health and economic security of women of color in California as CEO of the California Black Women's Health Project and legal director for the Alliance of Children's Rights. In addition to her work at these organizations, Crystal is a devoted civic and community leader as a member of both the Los Angeles County Public Health Commission and the Women's Health Policy Council for the Los Angeles County Office of Women's Health, among many other distinguished roles. Ultimately, Crystal's tireless work exemplifies the grit and dedication required to pursue justice, especially in times of struggle. When she accepted her current role at the Western Center, Crystal noted in her remarks, "Right now, we find ourselves in the battle of a lifetime, so I'm energized to join forces with this smart, passionate team fighting for justice. In the words of Ella Baker and Sweet Honey in the Rock, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." Her words are a call to action for us all. Thus, it is with great honor, and I am so happy to present the 2023 Women of Color Collective Women of Distinction Award to Crystal Crawford.
Thank you so much. Am I sitting up here or am I sitting back there?
You are staying up.
Okay. Thank you. Hi there, everybody. So good to see you, giving you love from La La Land, also known as Los Angeles. I'm so happy to be here with you this evening. I'm a native New Yorker and a Harlemite, and also by way of Teaneck, New Jersey. This is always, when I'm in Los Angeles, I always say, this is home, LA is home away from home. I'm always going to be a New Yorker, and so it's so awesome to be here with you this evening, and thank you so much for the kind words and for quoting me. And just thinking of me with this award. I tell you, the work that we do on the front lines in social justice is so often thankless work. People always say what you haven't done, right, as opposed to what you have, because there's always more to do than's possible. So when this kind of award comes along, it's just that little encouragement of like, yeah, we see you, right? Do it, like we're celebrating you. So thank you so much. It's an honor to come and celebrate and accept this award. My time at NYU was so special. The members of my class, the class of 91, there's about 30 of us that are still super duper tight, mostly folks of color. And I was BALSA chair when I was here, and we worked so closely with LALSA, APALSA, SALSA, all the ALSAs, and really became family. And I'm just so grateful for that family. And I see at least 2 people from my BALSA family from my time here, and Catherine Frank Hamlet, who, when I was BALSA chair, anything I needed, Catherine was like, what do you need? I'll do it. You know, she's just one of those people that serves tirelessly and is so committed to improving outcomes for folks of color and people who have been historically oppressed. So I said, thank you for coming out. She tricked me too. I didn't think she was coming. And then is Taina Biename here? There she is, my classmate, Taina. Another just warrior in terms of the wonderful work she's done over the years for gender equity and women's rights, and just so proud of you, Taina, and thank you for being here as well. Any other 91s? Did I miss anybody? No? Okay. And then my childhood buddy, Karen Thomas. We've been friends since I was 13 years old. Oh my gosh. And just so grateful for my other sister being here this evening. And, you know, I have to say before I share just a few remarks about kind of this well-being piece and how it's played out in my life. I just have to say, you know, I'm honoring our foremothers and forefathers on whose shoulders we stand, who survived the Middle Passage, survived enslavement, survived Jim Crow, survived the Great Migration. And if it had not been for the Lord on our side, where would we be? I'm a woman of faith, and that's one of the things about fostering your well-being. Stand in your truth of who you are. You know, oftentimes in these academic settings, it can be not particularly thought well upon to be a person of faith and to lift up what that faith is. And that's something that I've been very intentional about, not hiding who I am, not forcing that on anyone, but really being very true to myself, and authenticity is so important to me. So I'm just grateful for God's many blessings, and the people I've called out are among those blessings, and this award is a blessing as well. Just want to share a few thoughts with you around this whole notion of fostering well-being. The first piece I'd like to lift up is this notion of authenticity. For you to be well in your career, in your life, you have got to have a definition of who you are. That's an evolving definition often, right? And stand by it and not let folks sway you or make you feel like you have to fit into a particular model. When I left NYU and I decided I was going to go, even though I wanted to do public interest, I was going to go to a law firm first. You know, I looked for a law firm that would allow me to wear Senegalese twists in my hair, which back then was like, you know, now everybody wears natural hairstyles, but that was a big deal, right? That I could go and be myself and be unapologetically a social justice advocate. I laugh and say at my law firm, Manette, Phelps & Phillips, that I went to right after NYU, I had so many pro bono hours, I just knew that I was going to get in trouble. Like, I was just like, at the end of the year, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. But this shows you, I did good work, and I asked people, if you don't make your hours, what happens to you? And they were like, basically, they slash your bonus in half, whatever bonus you could, you know, be eligible for. And so when I went through that process, I got more than the maximum bonus that I was eligible for, even though I had all those pro bono hours. So be true to yourself. Like, don't be afraid to do what you're called to do and passionate about it. God will bless you for being true and authentic to you and yourself and your call on your life. Derek Bell came to NYU, the late, great Professor Derek Bell, came to NYU the year after we graduated, so we didn't get to take classes with him, the class of '91, but has been such an influence in my life, and I really believe there's a foreshadowing theme in what I'm going to lift up for you this evening. I'm a believer in providence, not coincidence. I just put that out there. There's just so many providential things that have happened in my life, and one of them is connected to Derek Bell. As much as I look up to Derek Bell, and so many of my friends who were in later classes got to take classes with him and to be his hi classmate Nicola, got to learn from him. When I got the job at Western Center, I called a fellow Dartmouth alum who's also an NYU alum, Tajania Henderson, professor, comedian and professor. This woman is amazing. To tell her, I'm thinking about taking this job at Western Center. And she goes, Derek Bell's Western Center? And I'm like, Derek Bell doesn't have anything to do with Western Center. And little did I know at that time, I got offered this job, that he had been the co-founder and one of the first executive directors of Western Center. So I stand on his shoulders, not coincidentally, providentially, and it's just a joy every day to think about his legacy and how we're able to continue to promote his legacy. Another one of my classmates came in. Hi, Nicola Knight. 91's in the house. Thanks for being here with your hubby. So another piece I want to lift up, I believe in honoring those on whose shoulders we stand. Professor Paulette Caldwell, who's Professor Emeritus now, I believe, took a class with her, Race and Legal Scholarship, which was just transformative. And some of the work we do at Western Center, we're actually one of the founding members of the Crown Coalition. The Crown Act is about celebrating natural hair and lifting up the fact that if you discriminate based on someone's hairstyle, that's a form of race-based discrimination, right? Paulette Caldwell was the first one that really lifted that up in a law review piece that she wrote called A Hair Piece, back at Duke Law Journal in the early 90s. Our Paulette, we call her Paulette because we love her so much when we're hearing, she is the one on whose shoulders folks stand that are doing this work and scholarship, including Professor Wendy Green, who's one of the leading scholars in this area and often talks about Paulette Caldwell as being a motivator and inspiration for her. So for me, again, that's providence, right? I was under Paulette's tutelage, And now I work on the Crown Act as one of the founding members of the Crown Coalition all these years later. The other thing I would want to lift up is just the other folks that we just aspired to be like when we were here at NYU. Brian Stevenson, professor, a young professor at the time, and Judge Leon Higginbotham to sit under his tutelage. I mean, just a wealth of race and social justice leaders and activists that really, on whose shoulders I stand in the work that I do every day. Another providential thing around this wellness and well-being and fostering well-being piece is when I was the ED CEO of the California Black Women's Health Project, I got an award from the Western Center on Law and Poverty in 2009. And just like this award was an encouragement to me when I got the award, that one was too, because I had chosen to go down kind of a totally different path, right? I wasn't doing a law firm, I wasn't doing traditional law. And I got the call from the leading legal services and advocacy group in California to say, we want to honor you. So I got that award in 2009, just thinking it was an encouragement along the way, not knowing that 11 years later, I would be the next executive director of the Western Center on Law and Poverty. So you gotta pay attention to this foreshadowing sometimes, and sometimes you see it in retrospect, but what's happening in your life, and just be open and just, I say, in fostering your own well-being, be ready to pivot. I have a mentor that says, write your plans, but write them in pencil. You got to be ready at the drop of a hat to make a move. You do it graciously. You never burn any bridges, but when it's time to move, you move, and you follow where you're supposed to be. One other thing around this mental health piece, well-being, that I'll lift up for you is when I was at the California Black Women's Health Project, we created something called the Black Women's Mental Health Initiative. This was in 2000. Nobody was really talking about mental health at that point. And I remember when we got the funding to do it and got funding to do policy advocacy to bring Black women and other women of color along on this journey to say, you can be the next Fannie Lou Hamer and Daisy Bates and Ella Baker. You don't have to wait for the lawyers to do this stuff, right? The folks who we were asking for funding from were like, you think with Black women or any women are going to come out and talk about mental health? Yeah, right. They did. We created this Black Women's Mental Health Initiative. Town hall meetings we had hundreds and hundreds of people coming to these town halls and other forums to really talk about policy change in mental health and mental health generally. And what we had to do is we had to frame it in a way that people could really relate to it. So we had titles like, is Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired? Fannie Lou Hamer, of course. We had titles like, is your job making you sick? I mean, how do you relate things to folks where they are, right? And to get them to engage in dialogue that might be challenging. So that is one of the most important, I think, things when I look back on my life, building that Black Women's Mental Health Initiative. And guess what? Did anybody watch the NAACP Image Awards? Well, I didn't get to see it either, but I'm going to watch the replay. So my successor at the California Black Women's Health Project was lifted up as an unsung hero on the NAACP Image Awards, carrying on that work, that foundation that we laid back then. And I'm just so proud of her. Her name's Sonia Young Adam, and she was highlighted during the show this weekend. And so it's about legacy. It's not just always about you. It's about who you can sow into, who you can pass the baton to, right? And then last couple of examples around kind of wellness and well-being in my career that I'll lift up are the Food Policy Council. The LA Food Policy Council is a body that is lifting up the issue of food justice, that some folks don't have access to healthy food, right? I was part of what was called the Street Food Committee. And basically that was like, okay, we don't have healthy food options in low-income neighborhoods. We have to look like at street vendors and other ways to get healthy food into these communities. So it was groundbreaking, and all these years later, this past year, we got passed in California SB 972, which is around legalizing street vending, so that it's no longer illegal for folks to be able to sell and make a living by selling on the street their wares, which includes healthy food access. And so the young people who took, I still think I'm young, but the truly young people who took the baton on that work I'm so proud of them because they're building upon the foundation of what we did, 15, 20 years ago. And then the last example I'll lift up is just this whole discussion around the health-wealth connection. In the health justice movement, we talk about our health is our wealth and really making the connection between economic and financial security and health and wellness. So that is, again, just a groundbreaking approach that we were talking about 20 years ago around, we can't just talk about physical health without talk about financial security and wellness and health. And now there's a whole entire movement of folks in philanthropy doing that work. It's called there's one group called the Asset Funders Network. All folks in philanthropy who are funding people who are trying to break the cycles of poverty, to get folks, out of the cycles of poverty. You talk about the guaranteed basic income conversations that are happening, right? How do you give people a basic income, money with no strings attached for a period of time, so they can pull themselves up out of the challenges that they're dealing with? So all of those things are built upon this whole notion of the health-wealth connection and philanthropy. And I want to encourage you all. The first philanthropy bug that I got was here at NYU Law School. I was at a panel about alternative careers for lawyers. And I'll never forget, there was a woman from the Ford Foundation who was on that panel, African-American woman whose name escapes me right now, but a leading person in philanthropy who was an NYU law grad. And that was the first time that the light went off in my mind, like, maybe that's something I'll do. And then, years later, I worked as a program director with the California Wellness Foundation, giving out millions of dollars a year to movements to help fund social change. And I really encourage you all, when you talk about fostering well-being, putting money behind movements is a critically important part of that. I can't tell you how many people from the 8 years I spent as a grant maker come up and see me in the community and is like, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for you. You took a chance on us. I gave people money that no one else would have given money because they didn't understand their importance in the community because they didn't really come from our community, right? So the importance, as I always tell law students, when I was at the California Wellness Foundation, of the 5 program directors, 4 of us were lawyers. Now, they used to joke and say, people are going to think you have to be a lawyer to get this job. But the idea, we as lawyers understand, like, to make social change, you need to put money behind movements, right? And so part of what is my approach to fostering well-being is along the lines of a Gil Scott-Heron famous line, "The revolution will not be televised." You all know that song or that line from Gil Scott-Heron? So people in philanthropy joke and say, the revolution will not be funded. Like, get over it, right? I submit to you, the revolution can be partially funded. And how can we, if you're in a grant making, if you're in a position to move money into movements, how can you make sure that you're helping to further the revolution, the revolutionary change that we need to have happen? So I just really encourage any of you to think about philanthropy and how that might enable your fulfillment as a professional, to be able to say, I helped move money to people who didn't have it so that they could make frontline, impactful change, whether it's in direct services or policy advocacy. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, and I'm considering going back to philanthropy at some point. I do think the power you have to make things happen, to get things funded, when you look at Darren Walker, head of the Ford Foundation, and just the revolutionary work that he's doing as leader, philanthropy leader of that institution. And then the last thing I'll say to you around fostering well-being is this Kujichagulia notion. Kujichagulia is the second principle of Kwanzaa. It means self-determination. I grew up celebrating Kwanzaa. I still celebrate it, and it's important to me. And this notion of defining who we are and not letting other people define us, that's how you foster your well-being. Started out with that, talking about it from the authenticity perspective, but just in the spirit of Kujichagulia and the principle of Kwanzaa, making sure that you define for yourself what you're going to do. Don't let anybody discourage you from doing something that's kind of out of the box. Like I told you, I went and did like all these different off the beaten path things and still wound up as executive director of the Western Center on Law and Poverty, the leading like mainstream legal service. Come on now, that is counterintuitive, right? But you get blessed if you follow your path and don't let others discourage you and say, oh, why are you doing that? Like, that doesn't make sense, you know. If it feels right, go for it, try it. You can always move on if it doesn't work. You know what I mean? I always joke and say you want to be able to be in the position of things that you're interested in doing as a young lawyer or older lawyer. You want to be able to say, been there, done that, got the T-shirt and the hat. You don't want to look back and say, oh, I wonder what it would have been like if I did X, Y, and Z, right? Like, no, you want to be able to say, I've done it, I rejected it, and I moved on. So, like, I have no regrets over the money that I gave up from leaving a law firm practice because I know what I gave up, and I don't have a problem with it. You know, there are good upsides and downsides to that career path. So I tell you all, follow your road, follow your dream. I'm just a living witness that, you know, stay prayerful if you're a person of prayer. Be open to erasing those plans you've written in pencil and going in a different direction. And of course, there are things that are annoying about my job. Every job has some downsides to it. But overall, like, I love what I do. I would do it for free if I didn't have bills. And that's, you know, it's just a dream come true, and I'm just grateful to God for his many blessings and for guiding and directing my path, and to all the mentors on whose shoulders I stand. And of course, I can't be in D'Agostino without lifting up my late mother and my father, who's still alive, thank God, and the partnership they had with me in getting me through NYU Law School. And my classmates will tell you this. I've been at every single law school reunion we've had, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, yeah. And my parents came with me as my guests to every single reunion. It was the cutest thing. Like, they were the only, like, parents, right? And I was like, because I worked in public interest, so we got a little bit of, you know, cheaper rate on the tickets. So I was like, okay, I would bring a date anyway. Well, I'll tell you how I fell into that. I was going to just bring my dad as my date. And then it was like my spirit just felt, oh my God, I can't do that. Mommy's gonna feel left out. And Mommy was really running the show, right? In terms of really directing who I turned out to be. So I was like, there's no way. So I was like, well, I just have to bring them both. So that's how it happened. And, you know, every single time I brought them with me, they felt so proud to be connected to NYU and so proud of my accomplishments and so proud of my classmates because they know my classmates. And it was just really, really special. So I say to you, you know, even doing something like that, I'm the only one at the reunion with my parents there, you guys. And did I care? No. I didn't feel funny about it. Like, you have to be like that, I think, dogged in your being you and being authentic to have the well-being that you know, we're talking about here today. You cannot let other people pressure you to do what they would do, or what they think you should do, right? You got to be true to yourself and to your vision, and just make sure that you recognize that we have a long journey. We stand on some mighty, mighty, mighty shoulders. We've come a long way. We've got a long way to go in this social justice quest. And as was quoted earlier, one of my life theme songs is quote by Ella Baker that Sweet Honey in the Rock turned into a song, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." And that doesn't mean, okay, we need to rest, don't get it wrong. It just means we don't stop working, right? Let's get it, that whole grind culture, and I don't know if you guys follow the NAP ministry. You guys know about the NAP ministry? Look it up just the importance of getting our rest is important. So I don't mean that kind of rest. I mean, we don't rest in the movement, you know, until that freedom comes. And it's just such a joy to do this work, such a joy to be part of the NYU family. And I'm just so proud of all of you. And if I can ever be of help to you in your careers, the students or young attorneys, please don't hesitate to reach out. I believe in paying it forward. I believe in the family concept and that we should all really look out for one another. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Thank you.
think you left your phone up here, Crystal, but I'll return it to you very soon. I promise. I will not make this long. I will not keep you from food. Yeah. Hold tightly. Thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing your story and your words of wisdom. I think I'll only speak for myself right now, but law school can feel a lot like you're just stumbling through the days. And I think it's really comforting and inspiring to know that if you're true to who you are, if you invest in your passions, if you make the most of what's in front of you, the dots will connect in hindsight. And I think that that is very important, because otherwise law school can really be a drag. So all this to say, thank you so much on behalf of WALK for coming tonight, for being here, for investing in us, and just for being a supporter of us. It has been such an honor to hear from you. Particularly, WALK is all about uplifting the next generation of women of color, so it's so important that that is such an important thing for you as well. I have a couple of more thank yous, and then I will be done. Thank you so much to the Office of Alumni Relations and the Birnbaum Women's Leadership Network, especially Kelly Spencer, without whom this night would never have happened. So thank you so much. Thank you to the WALK board, who have all worked so hard to continue to build a supportive space for women, gender nonconforming, and non-binary students of color here at the law school. Like Janet mentioned earlier, the programming for this year has been truly phenomenal. You blow our minds every single time you bring something new to us. I know it hasn't always been easy, and this year has had its particular challenges. It's our first year being fully back in person, but we hope you know how much the work that you do means not only to us as your executive co-chairs, but also to our entire membership. And finally, thank you to our attendees. This is our first alumni reception back in person, and it's really amazing to see everyone's faces, to see the community that we have here. It's so amazing to see so many of Crystal's friends and like fellow students from back when she was in law school. I hope that one day I have the honor of attending many of your amazing achievements as well. All this to say, thank you so much. If you are interested in continuing to be a part of WALK, we'll send out our listserv sign up. We're going to make an alumni newsletter so we can keep paying it forward. And then my last plug, and I'll be done. Please, current students, come to Mixed WALK next Wednesday, 6 to 9 p.m., Greenberg Lounge. It'll be a great time. It'll support a great cause. Thank you all again. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great night and have a wonderful week.